Joining us here on the next chapter, he is no stranger to the show, high-performance sports psychologist and longtime sports psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks, Dr. Michael Gervais. Mike, it's so great to see you. I know you're based out of California, so obviously you are being impacted by this pandemic and everything that's going on. But firstly, how are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, first order business. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you, to hear your voice as well. And yeah, I mean, we're all trying to figure this out. And it is an unprecedented experience, as you know, that phrase gets thrown around. But really what we're managing right now is uncertainty and the narratives that we tell ourselves about this uncertain condition that is unfolding. And so like in some respects, as a sports psychologist that has been operating in consequential environments, you know, some that are life and limb and some that are more rugged, like football is a very rugged environment. And there are more hostile and consequential environments that we can talk about. But in many ways, like the science is paying dividends right now because those environments are unpredictable. And athletes are great at managing the unpredictable. They're very skilled at it. And so in many respects, I am doing okay. And it doesn't mean that I'm not having levels of stress that are different, but stress is a required element to grow. And I've fundamentally orientated my life to grow. And so in some respects, while the real consequence of people being sick, loved ones included, that this is a challenging time for that, and it's a challenging time for the economic burdens and upheaval that's taking place as well.
Yeah, I think there's so many different directions that we can take this conversation in, and I was so excited to speak with you. Let's tap into just the general public, because I think a couple things that are really impacting people right now, several things: the uncertainty, anxiety, and also fear. And fear is something that you really work with all the time, and especially with a lot of the action sports athletes. So what is the first step in managing the anxiety that comes from fear?
Okay, good question. And so if we oversimplified emotions for just a moment, just so we can put some handles on them, there's like four basic emotions that I like to, and again, oversimplify, but there's fear, and then there's a scale, right? So a 10 is high fear, and we've got words for that, like petrified and terrified. And then there's low fear, which is like startled, you know? And so that's like a 1 on the scale. So fear is one scale, sadness is another scale, happiness is a third scale, and anger is a fourth scale. And each one of those emotions are completely different from each other. So they don't blur or meld into each other, but they do have a handshake relationship with each other. So when we talk about fear, and you use the word anxiety, so fear is like a middle, let's call it a 5, and anxiety is up on that scale like a 8. And anxiousness might be like a 4. So first order business is just know where the word is and the level of intensity of the word. And then the second is, as it relates to us right now, is that fear comes from a real biological response to trying to figure out how to stay alive. So your brain, much of your brain, is designed to figure out how to scan the world, identify danger, and then respond accordingly. And right now, that our mind, so let's separate for a moment our brain and our mind. They're not separate, really. You know, this is all an integrated experience. But the brain is the tissue that sits in the skull, and it's chemicals and it's electricity and it's hardwired, you know, in many ways to do many things. But our mind is the software that's running that hardware. And so if you're finding yourself right now craving information from your local news sources or national news, it's because your brain is starving for ways to figure out how to survive. And it's an okay thing unless it's excessive. If it becomes excessive, then it kicks on anxiety. So anxiety is an excessive worry and rumination about what could go wrong later. So first order business is just kind of know how the brain works. Second and third order business here is to have a way to interrupt that pattern. And just like recognizing it is a big deal. Like, oh, look at me. I feel anxious. That's an 8 on my scale. Well, how would I bring it down to a 2? How would I bring it way down? breathing is usually the number one skill. And so I'm practicing right now probably 500 really long exhales throughout the day. And
Wow.
it's like these little thin slices of recovery. And so, a long exhale is like 8 to 10 seconds.
Okay, is that some of the deep breathing? So, based on, let's say, for example, I like to do based on counts of fours. So, you inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. Is it similar to that or is it different?
No, that's exactly it. And I would just say, so let's say that you're doing a breathing practice and you're going to do 8 minutes of breathing or 4 minutes of breathing in a row. That's one way to think about it. The way I'm suggesting is like a deep breath in through your nose. So let's call it 4 seconds. And then just like a 1 second pause at the top and like an 8 second exhale. So you just double count on the exhale.
Gotcha.
And just as a technical note, you want to use your nose for all of it.
Ah, okay. That's a good little point. Sometimes you might go out of your mouth, but to go through the nose. That's good. You were addressing just fear and anxiety, and you mentioned how athletes are really good in dealing with situations like this because they are constantly being put in competitive scenarios where they have to deal with that fight or flight mode and the nerves that pop in. And I noticed that in situations like this, really big transitions. Initially I go into shock mode and I go into fear mode, but then after about several days, I'd say probably takes me about a week, and then I just kick it into fight mode, and I actually really I step it up, and I actually, for whatever reason, I become super focused and very motivated, and I actually enjoy this challenge. Sometimes I'm not saying that I enjoy this period, but I guess I don't know. I guess my experience through sport has allowed me to turn that little switch on. So for athletes and non-athletes who are listening right now, how can we shift that perspective where rather than being controlled by the situation, we turn into fight mode and learn how to control the situation ourselves?
Okay, so let's pull it apart in two different directions and maybe two different solutions. So the fight, flight, freeze mode is part of a system, an ancient system in our brain that's responsible for combating or dealing with something that's dangerous. And it's good. And it requires an intense level of, let's call it activation. So there's lots of stimulus happening inside our brain. If we stay up in that alarm phase too long, we call that chronic stress. So it goes from alarm to chronic stress. So what we want to do is we want to feel the alarm, right, when it's appropriate, and I'll explain that in a moment, and then we want to let go of it as quickly as we can. So that's one thing I just want to think about. So there's two systems. There's the sympathetic system, which is the fight, flight, freeze mechanism, and then there's the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And we want to make sure that we have a good balance between those two. So how do you activate the rest and digest? The exhale. Right? So it's an ancient signal to the ancient brain, like, hey, we're okay. There's no real threat right now. It's just in my imagination. So that's one. And then, but that's more like thin sliced and like moment to moment awareness of how you're going in life, how you're being in life. Now, the second part is you're using it like, hey, I'm going to turn my orientation to be a fighter, right? You're talking about it more like a mindset. And I think the most powerful athletes that I know, most powerful humans, is they don't let, and that's a word I'm choosing, they don't let the external world dictate their internal world. So they know how they want to live. They know how they want to feel and be in any environment, and they work from the inside out. And so let's say that you say, I want to be a fighter. Okay. So there's a toughness about it. There's a chip about it. There's an aggressiveness about that. And it's basically what I hear you saying is, I'm not going to let the external world dictate and create a smallness and a fear in me. I'm going to say, So the lens that I would put on that from a psychological perspective is that it's really important for you to identify how you want to be. Who is the woman that you're working on being? And if you can write that down, I think we got to get it out of our head. And if you were to just simply write down, like, this is the woman I want to be. I want to be a fighter, fill in the blanks, fill in the blanks, fill in the blanks. And then back out of that and say, okay, is that in my control or out of my control? It's 100% in your control, right? If you do this exercise right, your thoughts and your actions are always 100% under your control. So while this world of uncertainty that we're in feels like we're out of control, BS on that, because it's just an easy narrative for you to get caught up in. I'm not in control of that and this and what might, what. No, hold on. Come back to right now. Like, what is always in my control? My thoughts and my actions, and I'm going to master both. How about that? Work on mastering both, like the most optimal thoughts that you can have, to pivot, to adjust to the unknown in front of you, and balanced against the woman or the man that you want to be. That's it. That is the path of mastery.
That's great. And that's such a great exercise that I think I might have to do with myself. And for anybody else who's listening out there, that it'll be a good exercise for them to do at home. Certainly a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands. And to take that a step further, for any of the athletes who are listening right now, and there's a lot of them, hundreds and thousands really, just sitting there because no one is being allowed to train or compete. What are some things that they could do right now to work on their mental game and turn this layoff into a productive period?
There's only 3 things we can train as humans. We can train our craft, our body, and our mind. And so what I've learned from those that are at the tip of the spear is that, they're not leaving those up to chance. And if you're not formally training your mind or haven't formally trained your mind, now is a great chance. Like, double down, triple down on that. And I want to kind of challenge one of the words that you said, is that we're not able to compete right now. No, I see it so differently. I see it as though so I go back to the Latin origins of the word compete, which is competere, which means to strive together. And I don't need a whistle to compete. Right? So I'm always working with my community, with my people, to compete together, to strive together, to be our very best. And so I'm working almost like at a micro level. I'm competing to find the right words even right now. And I'm not competing against you. I'm not competing against anyone else in my world, but I'm working within myself to find the most concrete and the most pure way to describe something that's invisible, which is our mind, and something that is also a takeaway that people can do. So it's not just philosophical, but it's actually applied. So this is what competing looks like, and I'm competing right now to find the right words. And then let me just hit one more note here, is that how do you train your mind? 2 ways. One is the self-discovery process, like to learn who you are, to do that work. And I want to remind me to talk about compete to create in just a moment. And then the other is sets and reps, and it's called mental skills training. And literally sets and reps. Sets of what? Mental imagery, breathing work, self-talk, because that's how we build confidence. Sets and reps is just like we train our biceps or our hamstrings, we train our mind skills as well.
And you wanted to talk a little bit about Compete to Create. You're the co-founder of that alongside Coach Pete Carroll. And what are some of the things that you would like to incorporate there? Because I know you work on a lot of these things, including the breathing through that.
Yeah, and I'd love to set you up with for you to have an experience in the course. And it is a mindset training course. And it's 8 weeks. And basically what we did is we pulled back the curtain on what the science that we're informed by, what we've innovated in high-performing environments for our combined 65 years of experience together. And then we've shaped that into an 8-week course so that people can learn the path of self-discovery and the mental skills required to be the woman or be the man that you want to be in any environment. I mean, think about the freedom there. What if you, Prim, could be exactly who you want to be in any circumstance under any condition? And it is totally available. Dr. King had it, Malcolm X had it, Jesus had it, Buddha had it, Confucius had it, Muhammad had it, Mother Teresa had it, Eleanor Roosevelt had it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go down the list. Like, to be the man or woman you want to be is completely available, and it's exciting when we get to do it and get tested in environments that are electrically competitive, like pro sport.
That's great. What's your website? So just in case anybody wants to visit that and they want to access to your online program.
Okay, cool. Thank you. It's compete2create.net.
Well, that's easy enough.
Yeah, right. Compete, like, meaning, striving together to create the best version of you, and so that's our idea. Compete2create.net. We are not marketing people. We're two dudes trying to figure out like the science and the art of becoming your very best.
That's great. Well, I actually looked through the website. I looked through that some of the things in your individual program, and it looks really interesting. I know each week you focus on a different characteristic, a different competitive advantage. So it looks really cool. So hopefully, we'll get more people, especially athletes, to go check it out.
So Prim, I'd love for you to go through it.
Okay.
And then maybe we figure out a way to share, like have a competition with your community, to give one of them away or something. We do something fun together.
Oh, that would be great. So you want me to go through it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That'd be great. It looks really cool.
Why don't we figure out some way, like for your community, if we did, I don't know, some sort of contest that we do on social.
That'd be great.
And we figure out like what that is and reward the folks that are really getting after it, with the course.
That would be really fun if we could turn this period into something to make sure everybody gets involved, gives them something productive to do. They can walk out of this thing a bigger, better, stronger person, and we can kind of give back in some sort of fashion. I like this. This is really fun. I'm not letting you off the hook yet because we haven't gotten to our quarantine cribs question. So are you ready for our quarantine cribs question? Because we like to have a little fun here too, Mike.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course we are. Yes.
But first, you got to unblur your video. You got to unblur the background. I'm going to put you on the spot here and see if you remember how to do that. Oh, look at that. Well done.
We are students. Yes.
That was the first test. Okay, number one question. Where's your favorite spot in the house during this pandemic?
Okay, good. Like, let me show you a spot that I'm actually in it.
Please
so
do.
It's our library, and I really enjoy the space. And I'll show you why. Is that it's hard to tell, but this is like we've got this 30-foot like window wall here.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing!
Amazing kind of so it's super open and it just has like great little vibe up here. So I really like it. And then I've got this. We just got this beautiful piece of art. Can you see this?
Yeah.
It's this huge book. You see this little bit of art here?
Oh my
And
gosh.
so each day we get a new. It's Annie Leibovitz. So we get a new. I'll just randomly kind of go through. We get a new, like, cool piece of art every day. So
that
it's
is
like a living,
awesome.
So it's like a living little bit of art. Yeah, it's totally cool.
That's a coffee book on steroids, I would have to say. And I also saw the beach in the background. I see you're not too far from the beach, it looks like.
Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
nice.
Cali guy. That's so awesome.
I know.
What's your comfort toy? Do you have a comfort toy in all of this? Something that keeps you going?
A comfort toy?
Yeah, yeah. Like in A Few Good Men, how he has his bat and it helps him think. Is there something that you hold, just like something that inspires you, something that gives you a little security, anything?
I don't call it a toy, but but this is something. So this is. I know.
What is that? A bone? What is that?
Yeah. So this is an Irish shillelagh, and so if you like, this is a weapon. This was my great uncle's Irish shillelagh.
Stop
and
it.
So it's like I love ancient weapons of all things.
Amazing. I should really. Do you know Mike Golick Jr.? I should really introduce you to him because he was bringing all sorts of weapons onto his show too. His comfort toy was like something that I got from Mount Kilimanjaro, and I should really link you guys up. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
There's something about the craftsmen of ancient weapons that the Aboriginal environment and cultures really speak to me.
I love it. Last question. Who should we interview next? Somebody that you would like to tag.
Yeah.
It could be somebody you know, somebody you don't know, somebody that would be inspirational, funny, entertaining.
Oh, goodness. We should really get Marshawn on.
That's a great one.
Yeah, Marshawn. I mean, he's
got lots of things to say.
He's got a lot to say. And so I don't know if we can make it happen because who knows where he is right now, but like he would be all time.
Where do you think he is right now? Do you think he's on the beach? Is he a beach guy?
No, I think he's in Oakland, and I think he's with his people, and he's an incredible community person. So I'm sure he's doing good work with in his community right now.
All right, Marshawn, you've been tagged by Dr. Michael Gervais.
He's gonna say, "Shrink, dude." That's I call him football guy, and he calls me Shrink, dude. It's awesome. Yeah.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much for joining the show. Stay healthy, stay safe, and let's keep the wheels churning on that little project that we're talking about.
Love it.